Hey guys, it is Friday. It's fantastic out right now. I'm going to be busy all weekend, so I figured, what the hell, let's just go ahead and shoot this right now. Get it over with. That seems like, why would you be saying that? It's because it's horrible. I'm just kidding. In the last video, I discussed on how to choose a dietary lifestyle. That kind of just gives you some guidelines on how to work with your diet. But once you picked out like a type of dietary lifestyle that you're going to follow, now you need to figure out your calories. Now for some people, they use calories to just dictate everything about their diet. Some people don't worry about anything else besides their calories. And that's perfectly fine. You can totally do that. There's actually a fantastic YouTube video about a ballerina that does that, and to gain or lose weight, she just tracks her calories, and she does it in an old school manner, not using anything like a MyFitnessPal, just a notebook and a piece of paper. I'll go ahead and link that video below. I also have a ton of links that are going to go with this because there is so much information that I am going to be covering in this video. I did forget to say earlier, if you are wanting to delve into this much deeper, if you want to get into the real serious science of this, biochemistry is fantastic for that, dietetics, anatomy, physiology, nutrition, you learn about this so much more in those classes or in those subjects. If you're not somebody that wants to go to school, you just want to learn about it, those are some great subjects to study. So if you really want to get into the specifics of this, then definitely read up in those subjects. Anyways, today we're going to be learning how to calculate our BMR, our LBM, and our TDEE. I know those letters that I just said make no sense to you if you're just starting out, so don't worry, I will cover that. But I do want to say before we begin, definitely take notes on this. Remember that these are estimates. Every person's body is different. You may find a number that is accurate for you according to the math, but that may not be quite exact for you. So take these with just, a little bit of a grain of salt here, and remember that, your metabolism may be faster or slower than this. There are so many different things that affect your metabolism. Now, I did this every single week during my cut, but for the average person, they don't necessarily have to get that specific when they see changes occurring on the scale, on their body fat percentage, in the mirror. Then taking this into account could be a good idea. Also, since these are estimates, you can round up or round down. Don't be afraid to do that. So, BMR, that was the first set of letters that I said. BMR is your basal metabolic rate or resting metabolic rate. It is the rate at which your body is burning through calories to keep you functioning at rest. Now, what do I mean by that? That is everything from your heart pumping, your lungs breathing, your brain functioning, your digestion occurring, everything that keeps you functioning when you are laying in a bed. At rest is the key point there. When you find that number, this helps you along the way with all of the other calculations that you're going to have. I'm not opposed to using an online calculator because if you are just starting out and you're just learning this, that is a great way to kind of bypass some of the time spent if you feel like it. Now, if you're planning on going into this and like really delving into yourself, your diet, your health, then I would definitely do the hand-done calculations to find these out. But there are online calculators and very reliable online calculators that you can use that will come up with very similar numbers that is very similar to what you will get if you do these calculations by hand. There are a number of ways that you can come up with your BMR, different equations and such. And I prefer the ones that use your lean body mass as the basis of them. I prefer those because if you are an athlete, if you are super tall, super lean, super muscular, super short, not the average, then these to me are not biased. Many of the online calculators do take a bias towards your age, your height, your sex, your weight, and they do kind of generalize. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but if you are trying to get into the specifics of your caloric intake, then I personally would use your lean body mass as the basis. Your lean body mass, your LBM, is very easily obtained. All you have to do is find out your body fat percentage and your weight. Many electronic scales that are out there do have your body fat percentage and your weight being shown on them. Now, your body fat percentage is typically an estimate. You can always go get something like a DEXA scan if you really feel like it, but even just an estimate is still going to give you a pretty accurate representation of what your lean body mass is. Alright, let's go ahead and calculate our lean body mass. This one is actually really, really easy. So I went ahead and I wrote it out on the whiteboard. Okay, so to calculate our lean body mass, you take your weight in kilograms times your body fat percentage. That's going to give you a number. And then you take your weight in kilograms minus that number. That equals your lean body mass. So right before the show, when I was doing my calculations, I was about 125 pounds, and in kilograms, that's 56.699, and I was at 14% body fat. Now we're going to turn that into a decimal. 14% is 0.14. Let's do the math. 56.699 times 0.04 equals 7.937. So then we're going to take my weight in kilograms minus that number, and that equals my lean body mass. Now I'm going to reduce this down to just 2 decimal points, so 48.76. Now when we go to do our calculations, this is the LBM that we're going to use. It's really not super complicated when you think about it. There are online calculators that you can use. Bodybuilding.com has a great one. Don't be afraid to use that if you don't want to sit here and do this calculation. I definitely don't blame you. So once you know your lean body mass in kilograms, then you can start doing your calculations for your BMR. Now, some of the online calculators that you can use for this, while they are fairly accurate, they don't tell you what the equation being used is, which I do find to be a problem. But on a positive note, they'll typically tell you your BMR and your TDEE. And I find that to be very easy, especially when I was first starting out weightlifting and I was, 100 and something pounds, probably the exact same weight as my lean body mass is now. Yeah. Anyways, so I particularly like to use the lean body mass equations. Now that we know that, we can go ahead and do that. There are 2 equations that I like. That is the Katch-McArdle Equation as well as the JJ Cunningham Equation. I'm going to go ahead and show you those here because this seems like a lot, okay? So if you show math, sometimes it makes more sense. Here we go. So as far as the Katch-McArdle Equation for BMR, it says to take 370 plus, parentheses, 21.6 times your lean body mass in kilograms. Make sure that you note that that's in kilograms. So I went ahead and did that math for you here. 21.6 times 48.76 in kilograms, and then plus the 370. Here's what I came up with. That's the Katch-McArdle. Okay, on the Cunningham, the JJ Cunningham equation, note that this number, the starting number, is a little bit higher, so you're going to come up with a little bit more in calories. Also, that they decided not to use a decimal in here, and they went very simply with the 22 times your lean body mass in kilograms. So we went ahead and did that again. Okay, here we go. You see my math, and boom. So this really isn't hugely different from this number. All in all, it's really not. It's actually pretty darn close. So if that gives you any idea on how close that these equations can come out, I mean, that's just me. Now, I personally prefer the second one, the JJ Cunningham one, when I am on maintenance, and I have stayed in maintenance for a while. My hormones have come back to normal. That is typically where I run, like within just a little bit of calories. I mean, very, very little bit. The Cunningham one seems to be the one that works best for me. But again, these are just two different equations for coming up with your BMR, specifically using your lean body mass. Okay, so now that we've come up with our BMR, now we can take this a step further and see how our activity levels affect how much we need to eat. And you might be surprised at how much you have to eat to deal with your activity levels. I said in the previous video, we have to be really honest with ourselves when we're dealing with fitness and health, and that is incredibly true, because if you're not honest with yourself, then you're calculating for hopes and dreams. You're calculating for what you think you actually do. You're calculating for what you're wishing that you actually do. But in reality, if you do that, I mean, you could end up messing with how much you're eating by hundreds of calories. Maybe you're actually eating much more than you need because you're calculating for a job that you don't have, or activity that you don't actually do. Maybe you're eating much less than you need and you're losing weight because you're thinking that your job isn't as strenuous as what it actually is. So be really honest with yourself when you are doing these calculations. On your TDEE, this is your total daily energy expenditure. Everything that you do between home and work and at the gym and just your activity level throughout the day. A person who sits at a desk all day long and is a couch potato at night is certainly not going to use the same number of calories as a person who is working in a construction job and then going to the gym, busting his ass, doing powerlifting, getting done, and doing cardio when he gets done. Clearly there's a difference there. This is when TDEE is really, really important. Now I do have a infographic, I think it's called an infographic, it might just be a graphic, I don't know, a graph, a chart, from InBody USA. I'm going to go ahead and put that up now. So this is when we have to be really honest with ourselves. Are we sedentary? Are we lightly active, moderately, very, or extremely? You know, if you're a person that is a couch potato, you're sedentary. I'm sorry. You know, if you're a person that gets outside and plays with the kids every once in a while, you're lightly active. If you go to the gym, you know, a decent amount of times a week, you're moderately. Now, are you going to powerlifting or CrossFit? You're probably hitting that very or extremely. Are you training for a triathlon? You're probably hitting extremely. Now, you have to be able to use your brain here, okay? Let's just put it that way. You might not be exactly 6 to 7 days a week, but you also might not be doing 2-a-days. So find a happy middle ground so you have a pretty good idea on what you're going to work with here. Let's go ahead and show you those equations. So I've already shown you the Katch-McArdle Equation as well as the JJ Cunningham Equation on my BMR. Now we're going to take that BMR that we came up with times whichever decimal point works, whichever one works for you, because it might be more, it might be less. Now I am using, again, for my last 2 weeks of prep, I think it was actually my last week of prep, in which things were absolutely insane. So this is my insanity level here. And one for the Katch-McArdle here. As far as the Katch-McArdle, I came out to 1,423 for my BMR. I was working out all the freaking time doing 2-a-days. So taking my 2-a-days calculation times my calories per day, this is what my TDEE should have been. Now, I say should have been because we're going to get into that in another video, but this is what my calories should have been to sustain what I was doing. As far as the Cunningham, same thing, taking my calories per day for my BMR times the 1.9. Again, this is what my calories should have been. Now, I'm going to pull back here so you can see both of these numbers. These really aren't super different again, if you can see there. When I said that your metabolism does have an effect on how many calories that you actually use at rest and at play, if you will, I really mean it. I have a very fast metabolism. I have a hard time gaining like whoa. In fact, at one point I was at 5,000 calories and still losing weight. This is actually what my maintenance is. Can you believe that? Yeah. Now, this should be for a person of my lean body mass with my activity level that I had during my prep, the very final days of my prep. This should be what I would be eating to maintain. But your metabolism has a huge effect on that. Naturally, during my maintenance, during my bulk, I have an incredibly high metabolism. Thyroid problems do run in my family. I'm not saying that I have a thyroid problem or anything. And I tend to run pretty hot when I'm at the gym. That seems a little crazy, but my intensity is very high. I get incredibly hot and I have a tendency to overheat. Now, my body works differently than your body. Maybe you have a slower metabolism, and if this was you, this would be way too flippin' high for you. This is our starting point before we can really go into changing our calories to decide if we are building up or losing weight. Now, I say that this is our starting point because this should be my calories as a starting point. If you do the math properly, if you do your BMR with your lean body mass and then find your TDEE based on what you actually do, you're gonna get pretty darn close. But bodybuilding, dieting, fitness in general is as much an art as it is a science because each person's body is incredibly different. What it takes for me to build shoulders is not what it's going to take you to build shoulders or the next guy. Alex works shoulders once a week. It's such bullshit. And it's incredibly frustrating because as humans, we naturally want straight, definitive answers. I want this to be my answer. And that's not how it is. So when you are starting to build your diet, starting to plan your dietary lifestyle, plan your fitness and everything, remember that it is just as much an art as a science. There is a ton of gray area.